Deborah, before we take things a little bit further, why don't we take a call from a listener? Katie is in Nil in Victoria. Hi, Katie. Welcome.
Hi, Neil and Deborah. How are you today?
Very good. What are your thoughts, Katie?
Sorry, this is a really interesting conversation to me because I'm a creative, so more of a creative, and I like colour, and I've got some leadership roles, but the other person, my husband his surname's de Jong, amazingly enough.
Okay.
But he's a head person, and we just moved to a new place, and this is a classic example, because he's kind of a minimalist, and he wants, perfect order, which, I like it tidy, but I like it tidy but lots of colour, and I like to feel relaxed. Does that make sense? And I like other people to feel comfortable. But he wants all the mowing done perfectly, and if there's a weed, we'll just poison it. And I was like, no, I need to keep those.
You need to keep the weeds.
No, some of them you can actually eat. And I actually found out, it was true, I was looking it up yesterday, and I actually made a salad last night from some things in the garden that he wanted to poison. That's one example. I also cut opals for a living, so I'm very colourful in what I'm doing. I had an opal business for a couple of years. But, sorry, just one thing I wanted to say. When I was at school, I was just listening to what you were saying. I was always the one with a friend that was fighting the schoolyard bullies.
Okay.
And, if I see someone in the street that's, sitting out on the street and they're looking for money, I want to give them money every single time. So I actually have to fight that urge because sometimes it's not practical.
Right. Katie, let's get Deborah's thoughts as you're sharing your story and letting us in with some wonderful dimensions of your life. How do you see Katie here, Deborah? And what can we contribute here along the lines of what Katie's asking?
Yeah, great to meet you, Katie. Look, I get it. It's the challenge when you have a partner who is diametrically opposed in their preferences for living spaces. And sometimes people think I'm an interior designer, but 90% of the time I turn out to be a counsellor. So I'll put my counsellor hat here on and say there is a way that you can do this. I would suggest if he's got a home office, that you let his home office be exactly as he needs it. It could be a space where he can go, that's his retreat. It doesn't need to have colour in there. And if there is... Sorry?
Sorry. He has a shed too. So he has a big shed space and an office space.
So if he has a shed and an office space, there's got to be this horrid word called compromise, where he can have whatever he wants in the shed, as ordered as he likes, and in his office as beautiful and pristine. But under the understanding, a living environment, there needs to be for you a space where there is colour. Now, when I say colour, we don't have to paint every wall fuchsia. We can have cushions that will add colour. We can have plants that will add colour. We can have tea towels or, small items, or if it's a bathroom, we can have colour in our towels. You could live in a really neutral coloured home but have splashes of colour that are ordered that will also appeal to him. So, yes, there has to be compromise, but I'd suggest this, and we were having a little chat with Neil earlier about this, that you create a space of your own somewhere in the house. It might be a reading nook, and if you're in your opals, that there might be an area that you can go and have your splashes of colour, and it's just a space for you. A beautiful book by Carson called A Room of Her Own. And if there is a space that you can shut that door, that's just your space, if there's room enough in the house, and he has his shed and can keep it as tidy as possible, and a home office that's in his order, then you each have a place that you can go to that you can shut the door and stay away from anybody else's conflict.
Yeah, at this place we can, because the last place we were at, I wasn't allowed to grow flowers, for example. But now I'm allowed to have flowers in a veggie garden. So it's actually been a good progression. We now have more spaces that we can both, and I'm going to have my own workshop for my opals, whereas before I used to have to go out away from home to cut them. So,
perfect.
I agree, you can do it.
You can do it. It sounds as though It sounds like you've worked towards finding a solution naturally, which is really lovely to hear. But again, I mean, it is in the living areas where it's a common area. You have to come to some sort of understanding where it's a little bit of compromise. You can have the neutral colours in your furniture, but it's the scatter cushions or the art that maybe has a little bit of colour. And you'd be surprised how much he gravitates towards a decent piece of art or a decent coloured cushion rather than the whole area looking like flora and fauna, so a good shopping guide is to travel out together and find pieces that you're both attracted to.
Katie, thank you so much for your call, and our talkback line is open on 1800 316 316.